Okay, so before all the riffraff and all this stuff, and I do my commentary, I just want to point out that I am a Tom Taylor fan of writing, his writing. I think DC's Deceased is still one of the best DC comics to do it. I think his characterizations of the DC characters were better than anybody that was currently writing them. And as such, I've read some of the Jon Kent Superman, and I think it's been good. But the problem is, we're not talking about what Jonathan Kent has done, like what he did with the fire guy. When the guy was actually losing it in the military, wanted and he went a different way. We're not talking about when Jonathan Kent did the refugees and helped them and went against governments. And his hacktivist boyfriend now, yeah, I guess that would be his boyfriend now, has been feeding him news and stuff like that. So Jonathan knows how to deal with these situations. Oh, no, 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 no. See, the problem is the only thing that you keep hearing about is Superman is bi. Not Jonathan Kent. They fail to mention Jonathan Kent in almost all these articles. They just say Superman is bi. And of course, people are going to ask actors to weigh in, especially one named of Dean Cain. Now, I had the pleasure of meeting Dean Cain. That doesn't make me a political thing. So if you think, oh, that means he's a right-wing guy, you're an idiot. And it was a quick meet. Like I wasn't like a meet and greet thing. He was at some convention, and it was very quick, very fast. Years ago, we're talking before Twitter was a big thing and stuff like that. Dean Cain was nice, kind, genuine, and all around a very humble person. Now, one of the problems I keep having with people, especially when they go after Dean Cain, he's not evil because he has an opposing opinion. And the funny thing is, I've watched enough of his like when he talks about Superman stuff, he even talks about how he was played recently a father of a LGBTQ character. Funny enough, they got him off that show real fast when he had a problem with the Superman thing, and they have like not even really mentioned him since. I really do find that funny how they basically, because he didn't go with their political views, they're like, see, we had Dean Cain on here, and they basically just wiped him out of the CW. So, people are now saying that Dean Cain is apparently the terrible human being because he has an issue with Jonathan Kent being bi. At the same time, he's called it bandwagoning. Now, this would be, and I'm a person who is okay with Jonathan Kent being bi, by the way. This would be a little bit more of a hard take on the bandwagoning thing if it wasn't for the fact that you literally just announced Tim Drake being bi. You're doing a marketing ploy. Now, we have them in the news. Okay, so now that we have them in the news, because I like Tom Taylor, his writing, I decided to watch this CNN thing just to see what they would talk about. Just to see, will they really promote the comic, or are they only going to talk about the sexuality? Because the comic book story is what should be. And this is my problem. Besides them making fun of a person who wrote Lewis because they didn't spell check, and they're like, ha 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 ha, Lewis, well, I guess Lewis is okay. Ha 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 ha. People do the type all the time. As a matter of fact, one of your people in these tweets that I'm going to go down actually put Jon Kent. It happens all the time. I wish people would stop trying to be grammar lawyers and lawyers on social media. Social media is trash for the most part, so it doesn't really matter as long as you got what they were saying. The problem is that then Tom Taylor starts talking about how he's gotten all these tweets of appreciation and he ignores all the negatives. Once again, I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is I haven't seen a news media outlet. There's a couple out there probably, but the few I've perused, they don't talk about the story or even those details I just mentioned to you. They talk about him being bi. And when he's wearing his Superman multicolored shirt, he's just talking about Superman being bi. But even in that interview, at least not to my memory, and I could be wrong, I don't remember them mentioning it was Jon. So, of course, the normies, the people who don't read comics, which, by the way, you need to accept this. Comic books are a niche market, just like wrestling. You could have 1 million people read comic books. You could have, across the board, 1 million people across the board reading all types of comics. I'll even count manga in there. Manga, Dogman, Superman, Spider-Man, all of them, right? The planet has over 7 billion people. That is like a small fraction. 7 billion to 1 million. That is a small fraction. Then you start to break down, well, this many people read this. So if you take 1 million people that are made up by hundreds of thousands and you break that down, you might have 25,000 people reading DC and maybe 30,000 reading Marvel. And you're already at 50. And then the rest are broken up. Now, we do know with manga and stuff it's a little more, but the point is that if you just took 100,000, it starts to go very quickly. And there's not a lot to go around. So, because they always have to get everyone's way in, they ask the actor, I think his name is John Elias, because people's next reaction was, is he going to change his orientation? And I noticed he gave a very interesting response. But before I go in there, let's talk about the tweet that Tom Taylor made. Great chat, John Berman. Thing. When I watched it, they're acting like people who aren't in the know should know. Everyone knows Superman is Clark Kent. Okay? Just because in your comic you changed him to Jonathan Kent does not mean that everyone now knows that Jonathan Kent is Superman. Most people don't read comic books or they only read surface level. So stop trying to act like you're something better because you know the difference. And that is really annoying. And they're using that unknown knowledge to try to say, well, you're just uneducated. No, you, even in your thing, comic writer joins New Day on sexual reveal, Superman comic book writer. But you don't mention, at least in my memory, Jon Kent. So, here are some of the tweets. No wonder I stopped buying comics. I'll just buy manga or Astonishing Times comic. At least they can do a good comic. Now, I disagree. I think the comic is actually pretty good from what I've seen. Superman is not bisexual. It's just people wanting to satisfy the alphabet group. You should cater to your support base. This alphabet group are not the ones that buy comics or even watch DC movies. Sales, I mean, I guess. Manga sales will continue to wipe the floor with Marvel and DC Comics. No one wants this woke political stuff in the comics. Just stop. And then someone goes about how these are queer characters and they show that, right? Anyway, feel free to add more queer characters from wildly popular anime manga series to this thread scare. This is why I watch anime instead crowd. And then person puts, nobody is complaining about him being bi. People are complaining that he took Superman mantle without real motivation besides my pa is Superman. So I have to be Superman. The character you show are their own persona with their own motivation, something that Jon lacks. My biggest takeaway from this interview is that Tom Taylor's from the United Kingdom. When I heard the accent, I was like, I never knew. I think he's Australian, but okay. My point only was if all of you writers was making agenda well, there's a lot of DC characters that wasn't LGBT like Batwoman, etc., to use them, but it's not good to see that every character turn into an LGBT, especially on the respectable character. Further validating my decision to stop buying American comics in the mid 90s was the right move. Manga are the only comics worth a damn. Clue, there's no shortage of sexuality representation in manga. Okay. And there's other ones that I will be, showing on the screen as well. Just wanted to get that out the way. Now we have, let's see here, what Dean Cain actually said. I'll get back to John Elias in a second. Dean Cain would prefer to see Superman fighting for the rights of gay people in Iran, right? So they go, Brave would be having him fight for the rights of gay people in Iran, where they'll throw you off a building for the offense of being gay. Why don't they have him fight the injustices that created the refugees whose deportation he's protesting? That would be brave. I'd read that. Or fighting for the rights of women to attend school and work and live, and boys not to be warm and fuzzy Taliban. Cain said there is real evil in this world today, such as corruption and government overreach. Those are the issues he would like to see tackled in the Superman comic book, apparently. So, of course, people say their normal stuff about make Hercules gay. See, here's the disingenuous thing of that. You just make new characters. But that is what Dean Cain said. Now, trying to find John here. So Elias says this is a different Earth. Elias said nothing that he had seen the news about his comic counterpart earlier today. This is a different version of Jon Kent, and you have to remember there are other differences as well. Jon Kent in this universe, as far as we know, doesn't have powers yet, so there's always that possibility for sure, especially growing up, those formative years. There are things to explore, but I don't necessarily know if that is going to be one of those things. Jon Kent in this universe, at least for now, has been established as straight. And it's very, very, very funny how you catch these people, doing these kind of things and going off, right? And it's like, because someone has an issue with a change, especially when you don't explain that change has anything to do with a different Superman. It's quite funny how that gets ignored. Now, there are people, he posts a picture of people cosplaying and things like that. And Dean Cain says, if you're doing that, I'll happily read. Which is what he said. He said, I want to see him fighting this. So you start going down this little thing. And he says something like, good, get to the point of why they left and risked their lives. Now, of course, Tom Taylor says, I hope you dig it. And Dean Cain says, as do I. These seem like really, nice things. Like, Tom Taylor is not coming at Dean Cain, unlike Tom King, which I still have a video to do about that. He's like, man, I really hope you dig it, things like this. Now, why? One would assume that such an investigation is coming up in the book, especially given the emphasis throughout on truth, which I love that John grew up under Lois Lane. Do you get comics in single issues when they come out, or will you wait for the trade? Nothing wrong with that. I'm trying to find when people started coming at Dean Cain. Oh, here we go. Not to sound condescending, but that's what he's obviously building up to. You haven't shown any interest in the comic before, and you decide to chime in on something that you had idea about. I'm glad you'll read the story, though. Tom Taylor and co. have made an incredible series. Also, support your local comic shop when you do. What's funny about that is Dean Cain has talked about things he would read before. Yeah, the news story is Jon Kent is bi, but the secondary to what's really been the crux. My grandparents put their only child in a ship and said the dangerous voyage. My father crossed the ocean of stars. I love that line, by the way. We all know he's not going to buy it. What? Wait. Did you just admit you've been making comments on a series you haven't read yet? Like, you can't make a commentary. If you change Spider-Man's costume and I don't like the new costume change, am I now, because I didn't read the comic yet, that means I'm bad? Or I can have an opinion that I don't like the costume, or I don't like a change on the fundamental character? I didn't read One More Day for a long time, but when I found out the end result, I didn't like it. But, people like to do this. Let good actors worry about Superman, buddy. Yeah, because, you're an actor. Spoiler, baby, the Dictator of the Nation. And there's a few others here. No one really cares, Dean. The coming from a lifelong... Yeah, here's one that really got to me. No one really cares, Dean. The coming from a lifelong Bills fan who remembers your time with the team and a fan of Lois and Clark. You're on the wrong side of history with your takes. I feel confident saying that as a 20-year educator in the subject area. I don't believe that. And you get some others here. You can go down the post yourself. The problem is you have people sitting here saying, wrong side of history. This isn't war. You're making it a war. It's not a war. Okay? Get over yourselves. You're not getting rid of the right. The right's not getting rid of the left. This whole, every time I turn around, it's, oh, the other side is evil, and blah, 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 blah. Stop it. That's trash. Garbage. Okay? No one's on the right side or wrong side of history. People are always going to have things they don't like or complain about or do something. And the problem is that instead of DC Comics having these people talk about the comic book and what the story is about, all I see whenever I turn on the news or read an article is Superman is by. Not Jonathan Kent, his son, not these things. Most people only read headlines. And that's what they're doing. DC is making the rounds with this, right? Mainly because the character is bi. Not because of the story, not because of what it is. And then when Dean Cain said, hey, you know what? I'll read that. And him and Tom Taylor have a nice exchange. Nope, people decide to open their big, wonderful mouths and start just coming at him. You didn't read it yet, but you said something. You didn't read it yet because the comic is not even out yet. And here's the hilarious part. I guarantee you, most of the people who are making that commentary have not even touched the comic, or if they did, they've been stealing it. How to prove it? The comic book sales. Now, there is some stuff I'm going to show on here, just as that I didn't read. One of those things is people have been using this little chart, saying, see, comic book sales are all-time high. No, they're not. Now take out Dogman. And people did respond like, well, then why are comic book shops closing? Why am I seeing less? Take out Dogman. Take out the manga from that. See, that's the funny thing. These people will always do that, but they manipulate the system. You start taking out manga, this, and people did say, well, and why did this do that? The comic sales are down. Stop trying to fight that narrative. It's the truth. American comic book sales are down. Doesn't mean it's going to be forever. And I'm not saying DC and Marvel is going away. But just how CNN reacted to the person saying it and how they're mad that people are mad because they don't know that it's Jon Kent because you do not promote it that it's Jon Kent. You get on your high horse and think that you're better. Which is now proving the thing I was hoping this wasn't going to prove. And that is that this was another political move. It had nothing to do with progression of the character. And this is not talking about Tom Taylor's opinion. This is talking about DC Comics. Now, let's see if all this news translates into comic book sales. If the comic book does not sell, and I ain't talking about the one issue. I'm talking about consistently. If the comic book doesn't sell, let's say roughly 150 and above on a regular basis, and we actually start to see a downward trend on the comic, then it's a failure. And your political move was only a shot, only a spark up before it drops down. Tell me what you guys think. I now believe 100% wholeheartedly this was a political move. I still am not opposed to Jon doing it. I think the story is okay, but I do not like what DC has done with this politicization, because instead of the comic talking about how amazing this story is, they're talking about just Jon being his sexual orientation. I would love to hear what everybody else has to say, because I don't like that, because you're insulting me as a comic book fan, because I like Jonathan Kent. I don't like that he's aged up, but I'd rather you talk about the story, which there's no details about. Geek Protagonist, you stay safe, you stay healthy, you stay real, and I'll see you.